Chapter 935, Meeting Up. Anderson, who was enjoying a piece of cream cassava bread, looked up at Danitz. Seemingly in thought, he said, "I'm not sure why, but I don't wish to leave West Balem. Ha. Since I'm here as a treasure hunter, how can I return empty-handed? In the extensive forests, there are all sorts of abandoned temples that have gold, jewelry, antiques, and maybe mystical items. All of them are waiting for me to rescue them." Danitz tipped his chin and guzzled down the remaining guadar. This was a beverage made from a fruit native to West Balem. It was orange-yellow in color with a sweetness amidst its sourness. It was good at quenching thirst and relieving heat. It also had some caffeine that allowed people to combat fatigue and stay awake. Putting down the cup and picking up his napkin to wipe his mouth, Danitz scoffed. "I keep feeling as though you're up to something." "I also hope that's the case," Anderson said with an unconcerned smile. He matched breakfast with coffee. In East and West Balem, there were many excellent coffee-bearing lands. They were just slightly less famous than Fainapotter's Highlander coffee, the Southern Continent's Highlander coffee, and the Star Highlands and the nearby Paz Valley's Fermo coffee. Without waiting for Danitz's reply, Anderson said with a smile, "Actually, isn't this good? I'm providing you with free protection, and you're my interpreter. Everyone benefits out of this arrangement." Recalling that he was only a Sequence 7 and was wanted by all kinds of factions, Danitz had a baffling feeling that Anderson's words made sense. He coughed slightly and said, "But there will be certain times when I'll get you to stay away." "If you say please, then there's no problem," Anderson said in a relaxed manner. Danitz immediately hooded himself and walked towards the hotel's exit in preparation to begin today's investigations. Midway, he suddenly said, "Have you had such an experience? Often dreaming of an angel's descent wrapping you in its layered wings?" "No, it's not only a dream. I occasionally will have the same hallucination even when I'm awake." Anderson glanced at the boxing glove Danitz was wearing. After pondering for a few seconds, he said with a smile, "Are you a believer of some secret existence? Or have you made contact with some ancient item?" Danitz's expression froze as he forced a smile. "If it were as simple as you said, I would have long guessed the reason." As he spoke, he brushed shoulders with the three men who came in before walking out. Anderson habitually sized up the passers-by to confirm his surroundings. Therefore, he glanced at the three men and realized that they were a master and two servants. The master was tall and his skin was brown. He had soft facial features, as though he had parents from Balem and Lone. He wore attire in the style of the Northern Continent silk top hat, black formal suit, and a gold inlaid cane. The two servants were standard locals that seemed to come from plantations. They were helping their master hold his cane and leather suitcase. One of them was a mixed blood with a fleshy face and baggy clothes. On his waist was a rapier, as though he was also playing the role of a bodyguard. Unconcerned, Anderson retracted his gaze and followed Danitz onto the street. He pointed at the different-styled coffins that were horse-drawn or manually lifted with piqued interest. "Want to try one of those? It's very interesting. Once you get used to it, you will realize that death isn't something to be afraid of. Perhaps you might be able to open the lid at some point in time and stand up again." Danitz looked at the strange transportation tool through the corner of his eyes as he didn't hesitate to shake his head. "As a pirate, I more or less believe in the Lord of Storms. Certain things are taboo, and one of them is to stay away from coffins. I'm different, I don't have any taboos." Anderson casually took out a few Dilexi and bought a few sets of newspapers from the paperboy on the street. It had to be said that when it came to paperboys, the various cities in the Southern Continent weren't inferior to the Northern Continent. After all, manual labor was cheaper, and there were many children who needed to supplement their family's income. As Danitz walked to the end of the street in search of a carriage meant for foreigners, he took a copy of the newspapers from Anderson and quickly browsed through it. Suddenly, he noticed a piece of news. Infamous pirate who calls himself Admiral Hell Ludwell has been killed by the crazy adventurer Jayaman Sparrow. His Black Tulip and entire crew has been taken over by Meyerla, who claims to be Death's envoy. Danitz's mouth turned slightly agape, and he was hardly able to close it. He finally understood why Jayaman Sparrow wanted him to be careful of the numinous episcopate. This lunatic had actually killed the strongest of the 7 pirate admirals, Ludwell. About 10 seconds later, Danitz handed the newspapers to Anderson with a dazed expression. "Take a look at this." Anderson received the newspaper with a smile and quickly scanned through it. After a brief silence, he whistled and chuckled. "That fellow likely has a new nickname. Pirate Admiral Nemesis." Danitz didn't dare to nod as he poignantly said, "Back when I first met him, although I already found him terrifying, I never expected him to be this terrifying." At this moment, he recalled his early attempts of recruiting Jayaman Sparrow as a sailor of the Golden Dream. And while they left the hotel, Klein had already taken up residence in a luxurious room. He was standing by the window, watching the 2 hunters who were being flippant while walking. Rubbing the cufflink on his sleeves, he unfolded the letter and wrote, "I suspect that the evil spirit that possesses in C. Zangwill is from the hunter pathway. You can carry out more investigations in this regard." Along with this letter is a soul assurer's beyonder characteristic. It comes from a pitiful person who was grazed. I liberated him and promised to return his characteristic to the Church of Evernight. In East Balham, having just prepared to join the morning meeting, Leonard suddenly saw the angel messenger who wielded 4 blonde, red-eyed heads appear before him. Already used to this, he received the letter and opened it and gave it a glance. He was surprised to see an item as resplendent as the night sky. Leonard had an inkling as to what the item was. He hurriedly unfolded the letter and read it. 20 seconds later, he slowly sighed and silently said, as expected, "It's a beyonder characteristic." Klein is still very friendly to the church and the Nighthawks. He was rather delighted as he took out 2 transparent dead, ringed worms and placed it in that envelope. He then summoned Jayaman Sparrow's messenger, handed it to her, and paid the 1 gold coin. After doing this, Leonard loosened the top buttons of his shirt, walked out the room, and headed underground. On the way, he encountered Dolly Simone. Still dressed as a spirit medium, Dolly looked forward and asked very normally, "Any new clues?" "It's suspected to be an evil spirit of the hunter pathway." Leonard fell silent for 2 seconds before he decided against concealing the matter. Dolly nodded indiscernibly and said after some thought, "Then it might have the instinct of being provocative. It will proactively leave clues for us. Of course, this might also contain some level of misdirection to it." Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked at the captain's cabin of the Blue Avenger. "Come on in." Alger put down the brass sextant in his hand and said in a deep voice. A sailor opened the door and looked back. With the urging of his companions, he hesitantly entered the room and struck his left breast with his right fist and bowed. "Holy Lord of Storms." After Alger did the same response, he forced a smile and said, "Captain, many pirates and sailors from merchant ships have been recently saying that they found valuable items in the ruins of Banzi Harbor. There was even gold. We don't have any particularly important missions recently, so everyone is wondering if we should make another trip to Banzi. Such a bustling harbor, even if it has been searched numerous times, it should still have plenty of things left." Alger listened with a deadpan expression. After a few seconds of thought, he said, "I can understand your feelings. Let's do this. Let's head in the direction of Banzi Harbor, but do not set a destination. If nothing happens midway, we will stay there for a day." "Aye, Captain." The sailor excitedly clenched his right fist and struck his left breast again. "May the storm be with you." "May the storm be with you." Alger watched as his subordinate left and closed the door. Then, as though nothing had happened, he poured himself a cup of Lanty proof without any joy or anger as he sipped it slowly. Whatever that had just happened was within his expectations. This was because the news of finding items of value in Banzi Harbor's ruins was something he had spread while disguised. As a captain of the Church of Storms, he was constantly monitored by his sailors. Having been to Banzi once, mentioning it again made it suspicious. Therefore, Alger decided on getting the crew to make the request themselves. That way, even if they discovered anything or encountered something at Banzi Harbor, no one would suspect him, the captain. To the sailors, especially sailors who had just spent all their money in Bayam, Any news or rumors with sufficient allure would stir their hearts the most. Alger knew this very well. In addition, the Blue Avenger had stayed in Bayam for too long. If he hadn't set sail, it would also be suspicious. As for monitoring Artisan Sealf, it was naturally left to the hermit Catlia. Due to the investigations of the Aurora Order, this pirate admiral and the Future had recently been hanging around the Rorstad archipelago. It was said to be an important base of the Moses Ascetic Order. After drinking the liquor, Alger put down his cup and looked out at the undulating waves and silently said a word. Banzi. Considering how it was late June, and Will Ossipton's birthday was still unclear, Klein did some reorganization before heading above the gray fog to bring the radio transceiver back to the real world. He also warned himself that he could only ask a maximum of 2 questions. In the room that suddenly turned gloomy and cold, the unmanned transceiver began producing clicking voices.